Welcome back to the show. Over 30,000 people have died from the overdose crisis in Canada since it was declared a public health emergency in 2016. Now, what is not measured in these numbers are the countless loved ones who are left behind.
When our next guest lost her son to an accidental overdose, she set on a journey to understand her son's tragic death and his beautiful life. We have with us today author and broadcaster Tara McGuire to talk about her new book, Hold an After and Before. Thank you for being here, Tara.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here, and thank you for having written this book. And we'll begin your story with, asking you, what was your relationship like with your son, Holden?
Well, he was 21 when he died, so we went through some rough teenage years, but his character was just so interesting. He was a good friend. He was a great son, a great brother, an artist. He was an art student. He really got into graffiti as an older teen, and then on, and his pieces became bigger and bigger. He created a lot of beautiful graffiti, and he was always playing music and had lots of friends. He was just great to be around. I miss him a lot.
The book is so beautiful, and you describe it as being part memoir and part fiction because of how you portray your son's voice alongside your own. I'm curious, what made you want to tell the story in that way?
It was a process. Initially, I didn't know how to write a book at all, so I started writing a novel about Holden in his voice, and then I realized that wasn't really working well and that I had something to add to the story as well. So then I started writing in the first person, like a memoir, and then I had 2 books, so I had to find a way to kind of integrate those stories. And what I found is I could ask questions about what happened and then answer them in sort of the fictional part and the research part of the book, which is how the combo comes in.
So you took also some text messages and things that you discovered. Like, what did you learn about your son through the process of creating this book?
Yeah, it's interesting to read someone's private text messages. And I learned that Holden was very loyal. He was a really good friend. He was really there for people. He was incredibly funny, very smart, and got into trouble sometimes. He was a jerk sometimes, as we all can be. I think I was able to find out that he was a very complex person, and he cared a lot about the world, and he struggled at times.
Did you always know that you wanted to share this story publicly, or did you start this project perhaps just trying to cope with grief?
Yeah, I'm still not entirely comfortable with sharing it publicly. I definitely was coping with my grief, and I tend to kind of move in the artistic direction when that happens. And so I was writing and journaling and writing poems and things, and then it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know exactly when I realized it was a book, but it's helped me sort of process what's happened. I wouldn't say it's made the grieving easier. I think a person can be suffering from deep grief and also be a creative and functional and joyful person at the same time.
In the book, you talked about experiencing a lot of guilt accompanying the loss of your son. What is that? Is the guilt rooted in part to do with the stigma that still surrounds addiction?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many people that have contacted me to say, my son died, my niece died, my sister died, my colleague died, and they don't know what to do. There's really no place to put that. It's very isolating. And so I thought, if I can find out sort of what happened with Holden's story specifically, then maybe other people might be able to connect with that story in a more universal way through the process that I tried to explore in the book. So people have said it's a beautiful book to read, which is kind of funny considering it's such a sad story, but hopefully there's something in there that makes people feel connected with the story.
Now, we understand you researched quite a bit for this book as well. What did you discover about the overdose crisis in Canada right now?
Well, I'm from Vancouver, and so it's a very obvious problem in Vancouver. I would say it's more of a mental health crisis and a homeless crisis than it is a drug crisis because people are struggling. People are really in pain. A lot of young people are facing a world now that's tough to be in. We didn't have to deal with climate and this divisive politics and whether or not we could afford to live. And so I think people are struggling, and I found out that people use substances for a lot of reasons, and many of them are completely functional, and that people who die aren't necessarily all on the downtown east side. They're everywhere. Professional people are using substances. So I found out that we need to open our eyes and be a little more compassionate and less judgmental.
Now, British Columbia has taken a really big step forward by applying to the federal government for a legal exemption to decriminalize the carrying of small dosages for personal use. Do you think that that action is going to help?
I don't know a lot about it. I think there's a lot of really good people working in policy, but what I'll say is I think for those people that really are entrenched and use drugs every day, it's definitely going to help them. It's going to save lives. Absolutely. For those that are younger and maybe getting into drugs, I really don't know what effect it'll have. For sure, it's saving lives right now. Absolutely.
What do you hope that people will take away or understand better about drug addiction through your book and sharing your story?
I hope people feel and realize and widen their view of what a drug user is. I hope that people become more compassionate and realize that everyone is complex. You know, we all do. I watch a lot of Netflix and drink wine on Fridays as my way to kind of check out from a busy and stressful life. And people make different choices. So I hope that people can see that maybe we can be a little more open, a little less judgmental, and a little more accepting, more compassionate.
If there's a parent watching right now that might be struggling through this exact situation right now, what would you say to them?
Oh, parenting advice is hard because I don't feel like I did the best job of that. But my daughter's 19 now, and our conversations are very open, very, very open, and very inquisitive instead of judgmental. Like I was very sort of punitive before when I parented Holden, and you can't do this, this is wrong. And now I think I would approach it more as, why are you doing this? What does it offer you that maybe we could find a healthier way for you to deal with it? What is troubling you, and can we talk about that?
Tara, thank you for being here today. This can't be easy to talk about, so thank you for reading this book and sharing your story. The book is called Holden, After and Before, and we have a copy for each member of the audience to take home today. We're gonna be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.